And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. Hi, everybody. It is 2023, and my hair is doing something weird. Isn't that amazing, ladies and gentlemen? 2023. Last time I checked, it was about 1978. But so it goes. We, there are good things that have the internet. Well, a lot of bad stuff has come from the internet, but one thing that's fun is you're kind of in touch with people a lot more easily than one was before the internet. I think about when I was a teenager running down to the mailbox every day when I was home in Vermont, running down to see if there was a letter. Now we have Facebook, and I unlike some people, I don't spend all my time arguing. I know my brother Graham, if he was still with us, would be spending a lot of his time arguing with people, but I try not to. Anyway, it is a joy to be able to do this every Sunday when I'm home. And amazingly, we started doing this during the pandemic in 2020. It's now 2023. Not a real number, obviously. But it's 2023, and we're going to keep doing Benchley Night because I enjoy the hell out of reading it, and enough of you tune in every time. And we raise money for good causes. So what's the harm in that? What's the harm in that, ladies and gentlemen? Hey, one thing before I get going tonight, you need to go over to workplayeveryday.com. Right now, Betty Sue is running a special 15% off from now until January 7th. And all you need to do is type in the discount code thing 150FF JAN 127 1TO7. 15 off Jan 1 to 7. I'm sure it's in her Facebook postings and stuff as well. But you owe it to yourself. Get yourself a work play every day. It's going to make your life far more complicated than it is already. And we all could use that. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, no, actually, it really helps. It really helps organize your life. And the new size, it's like half, it's like paperback book size, and it is wonderful. All right. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're having a classic Robert Benchley. I may have read it once or twice. If I've read it before, I've only read it once before. And it is called A Good Old-Fashioned Christmas. And one of the things I love about it is that he references taking the train from, I believe it's New York City, but he makes a joke about a town that it's probably Bellows Falls that he makes a joke about. He definitely makes a joke about White River Junction, but I believe Bellows Falls gets a sideways mention. There is a not very funny Robert Benchley called Fascinating Crimes that actually takes place in Bellows Falls. Maybe I'll read that someday. But before we get going, we have a few people to thank. Tonight's liberal snowplowing do-gooder beneficiary was Médecins Sans Frontières, which is either a Peter Gabriel song or a charity of doctors going to places where it is kind of dangerous to go. And given that the world is still sort of a hot mess, I, for one, am very grateful to them for going there. And we raised $285, which is not bad. Not bad, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for doing this week after week. None of it, obviously, in the scheme of the world where things are $5 million, $2 billion, $285 doesn't make a lot of difference, but it makes a little difference. Better than not doing it. Anyway, so we have to thank our friend out there in Saxons River, Vermont. She is about to get cut off from civilization. The bridge between Saxons River and Bellows Falls is, or I guess it's Interstate 91 they're doing work on right now. And that road is getting cut off. And then they're replacing the bridge between Saxons River and Bellows Falls. And we're not going to see Martha Rowley for a long time. So let's give it up for Martha Rowley out there in St. Louis. She was going to take the train across Canada and then take the train down from Canada down to San Francisco and then take the train from San Francisco back to Chicago and the train from Chicago back to St. Louis. But that did not happen. And that is kind of good in a way, because although the train from Toronto to Vancouver was on time, the train from San Francisco to Chicago is running like 23 hours late. Out there, the wonderful Terry Hudson in Bellows Falls himself, making a brief appearance between being thrown back into Facebook jail, Mr. Rick Kavatsky. Oh, our good friend, she appears, she disappears. She's like a sylph. She's like she appears and then she's gone. It's like a wonderful, wonderful thing. Miss Carol Burning out there in Cincinnati, Ohio, out there in the Netherland Hotel lobby, looking up at the Art Deco Rococo ceiling. Our good friend, Mr. J.T. Mayer, down there in Guilford, Vermont. Down there in Guilford, Vermont, where I forget which crazies are in charge of things down there. I guess not crazies are in charge of things, but crazies are trying to get in charge of things. Down there in Guilford, Vermont, staving off the crazies, Ms. Sarah Obenden. Out there in Omaha, Nebraska, out there eating lobster rolls and looking at the corn under 1.5 feet of snow. Not as high as an elephant's eye right now, is it, John? Mr. John Wilhelm. Oh, my artist friend, she just posted, I got the most beautiful Christmas card from her. Oh, it's in the other room. But look at her art, ladies and gentlemen. She does beautiful, beautiful art. Ms. Catherine Fisher. And out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I was about to put him out there in Cincinnati, Ohio, but he is indisputably in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where my grandfather was minister in Pittsburgh, where my father was born. And now most of that side of the family of my Uncle Converse, we had good, weird New England names, Converse, Armstrong, whatever. But where Uncle Converse was, now is most of the Converse Pierce side of the family. And leading that side of the family is a little dog named Ginger. But Ginger's mom and dad, my very, very tall cousin, Mr. Nat Hunter, and his wonderful wife, Elise. Thank you all so much. And now sit back and enjoy a good old-fashioned Christmas by Robert Benchley. Sooner or later, at every Christmas party, just as things are getting good, someone shuts his eyes, puts his head back, and moans softly, "Ah, well, this isn't like the old days. We don't seem to have any good old-fashioned Christmases anymore." To which the answer from my corner of the room is, "All right, that's fine. That suits me." Just what they have in mind when they say an old-fashioned Christmas, you never can pin. You can never pin them down to telling. Lots of snow, they mutter, and lots of food. Yet, if you work it right, you can still get plenty of snow and plenty of food today. Well, snow at any rate. Then there seems to be some idea of the old-fashioned Christmas being, of necessity, out in the country. It does not make any difference whether you were raised on a farm or whether your idea of a rural Christmas was gleaned from pictures and old copies of Harper's Young People. You must give folks to understand that such were the surroundings in which you spent your childhood holidays. And that, me, those days will never come again. Well, supposing you get your wish sometime. Supposing, let us say, your wife's folks who live up in East Russet, Vermont, write and they ask you to come up, bring the children for a good old-fashioned Christmas. Quote, well, we're all still together, unquote, they add cheerily with their flair for putting everybody in a good humor. Hooray, hooray, off to the country for Christmas. Pack up all the warm clothes in the house, for you will need them up there where the air is clean and cold. Snowshoes? Yep, put them in, or better yet, Daddy will carry them. What fun, what fun. Take along some sleigh bells to jangle, in case there aren't enough on the pony. There must be jangling sleigh bells, and whiskey for frostbite. Or is it snakebite that whiskey is for? Anyway, put it in, put it in. We're off. Goodbye, oh, goodbye. Jangle, 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 jangle. In order to get to East Russet, you take the Vermont Central as far as Twitchell's Falls, and you change there for Torpid River Junction, where a spur line takes you right into Gormley. At Gormley, you're met by a buckboard, which takes you back to Torpid River Junction again. By this time, a train or something has come in which will wait for the local from Beezus. While waiting for the local from Beezus, you will have time to send your little boy to school so that he can finish 3rd grade. At East Russet, Grandpa meets you with the sleigh. The bags are piled in, and Mother sits in front with Lester in her lap, while Daddy takes Junior and Gaga in back with him and the luggage. Giddy up, Esther girl. Esther girl giddy ups, and 2 suitcases fall out. Hi ho, hi ho. Out we get and pick them up, brushing the snow off and filling our cuffs with it as we do so. After all, there is nothing like snow for getting up one's cuffs. Good, clean snow never hurt anyone, which is lucky, because after you've gone a mile or so, you discover that little Gaga is missing. Never mind. She is a self-reliant little girl and will doubtless find her way to the farm on her own. Probably she will be there waiting for you when you arrive. The farm is situated on a hill about 1,100. The farm itself is situated on a hill about 1,100 miles from the center of town, just before you get into Canada. If there is a breeze in winter, they get it. But what do they care for breezes so long as they have the little Colonel oil heater in the front room? That makes everything cozy and warm within a radius of about 4 inches. And the big open fireplace with the draft coming down it. Oh, fun for everybody. You are just driving up to the farmhouse in the sleigh with the entire right leg frozen where the lap robe has slipped out. Grandma is waiting for you at the door, and you bustle in all glowing with good cheer. Merry Christmas, Grandma! Merry Christmas! Lester is cross and Junior is asleep and has to be dragged by the hand upstairs, bumping against each step all the way. It is so late that you decide that you all might as well go to bed, especially when you learn that breakfast is at 4:30 a.m. It's usually at 4, but Christmas being a holiday, everybody sleeps late. As you reach the top of the stairs, you get into a current of cold air, which is, it's very funny, ladies and gentlemen, because with Betty Sue here, she's like, it's cold here. And it's not as cold as it used to be, but it can be cold. As you reach the top of the stairs, you get into a current of cold air, which is something of the quality of the temperature in a nice, well-regulated crypt. This is the bedroom zone. And in it, the thermometer never tops the 0 mark from October 15th until the middle of May. Those rooms in which no one sleeps are used to store perishable vegetables in. That's true, actually, ladies and gentlemen. We always did store potatoes and apples in the empty bedrooms in Aunt Mary's old room. But yeah. Those rooms in which no one sleeps are used to store perishable vegetables in, and someone has to keep thumbing the tomatoes and pears every so often to prevent their getting so hard that they crack. The way to get undressed for bed in one of Grandpa's bedrooms is as follows. Starting from the foot of the bed, starting from the foot of the stairs where it is warm, run up 2 at a time to keep the circulation going as long as possible. Opening the bedroom door with one hand, tear down the curtains from the windows with the other, pick up the rugs from the floor, snatch the spread from on top of the bureau, pile all of these on the bed, cover with the closet door, which you have wrenched from its hinges, and leap quickly underneath. It sometimes helps to put on a pair of rubbers over your shoes. Now, rubbers, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who may not know that nomenclature, are what one might call galoshes, a thin rubber membrane that you put over dress shoes. It is not rubbers in that other sense. It sometimes helps to put on a pair of rubbers over your shoes. And even when you are in bed, you have no guarantee of going to sleep. Grandpa's mattresses seem to contain the overflow from the silo. Corn husks, baked potato skins, and long stringy affairs which feel like pipe cleaners. On a cold night, snuggling down into these is about like snuggling down into a bed of damp pine cones out in the forest. Then there are things abroad in the house. Shortly after you get into bed, the stairs start snapping. Next, something runs along the roof over your head. You say to yourself, don't be silly, it's just Santa Claus. Then it runs along in the wall behind the head of the bed. Santa Claus wouldn't do that. Down the long hall that leads into the L of the house, you can hear the wind sighing softly with an occasional reassuring bang of a door. The unmistakable sound of someone dying in great pain arises from just below the windowsill. It is a sort of low moan with just a touch of strangulation in it. Perhaps Santa has fallen off the roof. Perhaps that story you once heard about Grandpa's house having been a hangout for revolutionary smugglers is actually true, and one of the smugglers has come back for his umbrella. The only place at a time like this is down under the bedclothes. But the children become frightened and demand to be taken home, And Grandpa has to be called to explain that it's only Bluebell out in the barn. Bluebell has asthma, and on a cold night, they have to be very patient with her. Christmas morning dawns cloudy and cold, with the threat of plenty more snow. And after all, what would Christmas be without snow? You lie in bed for 1 hour and a quarter, trying to figure out how you can get up without losing the covers from around you. A glance at the water pitcher shows that it's time for them to put up the red ball for skating. You think of the nice warm bathroom at home and decide that you can wait until you get back there before shaving. This breaking the ice in the pitcher thing seems to be a feature of the early lives of all great men when they look back on with tremendous satisfaction. When I was a boy, I used to have to break the ice in the pitcher every morning before I could wash. It is said with as much pride as one might say, when I was a boy, I stood at the head of the class. Just what virtue there is in having to break ice in a pitcher is not evident, unless it lies in their taking the bother to break the ice and wash at all. Anytime I have to break ice in a pitcher as a preliminary to washing, I will go unwashed. That's all. And Benjamin Franklin and Ulysses S. Grant and Rutherford B. Hayes can laugh just as much as they like. I am nobody's fool about a thing like that. Oh, getting the children dressed. It is a lot of fun when you have to keep pumping their limbs up and down to keep them from freezing out stiff. The children love it and are just as bright and merry as little pixies when it's time to go downstairs and say good morning to Grandpa and Grandma. The entire family enters the dining room, purple and chattering and exceedingly cross. After breakfast, everybody begins getting dinner. The kitchen, being the only warm place in the house, may have something to do with it. But before long, there are so many potato peelings, turkey feathers, squash seeds, and floating bits of pie crust in the kitchen that the women folks send you and the children off into the front part of the house to amuse yourselves and get out of the way. Then what a jolly time you and the kiddies and Grandpa have together. You can either slide on the horsehair sofa or play the Wayside Chapel on the piano. The piano has scroll work on either side of the music rack with yellow silk showing through, or look out the window and see 10 miles of dark gray snow. Perhaps you may even go out to the barn and look at the horses and cows. But really, as you walk down between the stalls, and you've seen one horse or one cow, really, you've kind of seen them all. And beside, the cold in the barn has the added flavor of damp harness leather and musty carriage upholstery, which eats into your very marrow. Of course, the presents to be distributed, but that takes on much the same aspect as the same ceremony in the new-fashioned Christmas, except that in the really old-fashioned Christmas, the presents weren't so tricky. Children got mostly mittens and shoes with a sled thrown in sometimes for dissipation. Where a boy today is bored by 3 o'clock in the afternoon with his electric grain elevator and miniature pond with real perch in it, the old-fashioned boy was lucky if he got a copy of Naval Battles of the War of 1812 and an orange. Now this feature is often brought up and praised the old way of doing things. I tell you, says Uncle Jip, The children in my time never got such presents as you get today. And he seems proud of the fact, as if there was some virtue accruing to him for it. If the children of today can get electric grain elevators and tin automobiles for Christmas, why aren't they that much better off than their grandfathers who got only wristlets? Learning the value of money, which seems to be the only argument of the Stan Patters, does not hold very much water as a Christmas slogan. The value of money can be learned in about 5 minutes when the time comes, and Christmas is not the season. But to return to the farm, where you and the kiddies and Grandpa are killing time, you can either bring in wood from the woodshed, or thaw out the pump, or read the books in the bookcase over the writing desk. Of the three, bringing in the wood will probably be the most fun, as you are likely to burn yourself thawing out the pump, and the list of reading matter on hand includes The Life and Deeds of General Grant, Our First Century, Andy's Trip to Portland, bound volumes of the Jersey Cattle Breeders Gazette, and Diseases of the Horse. Then there's some old copies of Round the Lamp for the years 1850 to 1854, and some colored plates showing plans for the approaching World's Fair in Chicago. Thus the time passes in one round of gaiety after another until you are all summoned for dinner. Here, all cavilling must cease. The dinner lives up to the advertising. If an old-fashioned Christmas could consist entirely of dinner without the old-fashioned bedrooms, the old-fashioned pitcher, the old-fashioned entertainments, etc., we professional pessimists would not have a turkey leg left to stand on. But, as has been pointed out, it is possible to get a good dinner without having to go up to East Russet, Vermont, or if it isn't, then our civilization has been a failure. And the dinner only makes the aftermath seem worse. According to an old custom of the human race, everyone must overeat. Deliberately and with considerable gusto, you sit at the table and you say pleasantly, "Oh my, but I won't be able to walk after this. Just a little more of the dark meat, please, Grandpa, and just a dab of stuffing. Oh dear, that's too much." You haven't the excuse of the drunkard who becomes oblivious to his excesses after several drinks. You know what you are doing, and yet you make light of it, and you even laugh about it, as long as you can laugh without splitting a seam. And then you sit and moan. If you were having a good new-fashioned Christmas, you'd go out to the movies or take a walk or a ride, but to be really old-fashioned, you must stick close to the house. For in the old days, there were no movies and no automobiles. And if you wanted to take a walk, you had to have the hired man go ahead of you with a snow shovel and make a tunnel. There are probably plenty of things to do in the country today, and just as many automobiles and electric lights as there are in the city. But you can't call it Christmas with all those improvements an old-fashioned Christmas. That is cheating. If you're going through with this thing right, you have got to retire to the sitting room after dinner and sit. Of course, you can go out and play in the snow if you want to, but you know as well as I do that this playing in the snow is all right when you're small, but it gets a bit trying on anyone over 30. And anyway, it always begins to snow about 3 in the afternoon on an old-fashioned Christmas day with a cheery old leaden sky overhead and a jolly old gale sweeping around the corners of the house. No, You simply must sit indoors, in front of a fire if you insist, but nevertheless with nothing to do. The children are sleepy and snarling. Grandpa is just sleepy. Someone tries to start the conversation, but everyone else is too gorged with food to be able to move their lower jaw sufficiently to articulate. It develops that the family is in possession of the loudest ticking clock in the world. And along about 4 o'clock, it begins to break its own record. A stenographic report of the proceedings would read as follows. Ho hum, I'm sleepy. I shouldn't have eaten so much. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. It seems just like Sunday, doesn't it? Look at Grandpa. He's asleep. Here, Junior, don't play Grandpa. Let him sleep. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Junior, let Grandpa alone. Do you want Mama to take you upstairs? Oh, hum, I am full. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Louder and louder the clock ticks until something snaps in your brain and you give a sudden leap into the air with a scream, finally descending to strangle each of the family in turn and Grandpa as he sleeps. Then, as you feel your end is near, all the warm things you have ever known come back to you in a flash. You remember the hot Sunday subway to Coney Island, your trip to Mexico, the bullfighters of Spain. You dash out into the snowdrifts and you plunge along until you sink exhausted. Only the fact that this article ends here keeps you from freezing to death with an obituary the next day reading, died suddenly at East Russet, Vermont, of an old-fashioned Christmas. All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining us on this first day of 2023, there being no such year. And we will see you again next week. You take good care. Don't eat too much. Bye-bye.